I just wanted to kind of start today's session, which is slightly related to, inshallah, what we're going to be talking about. But I thought, especially due to a lot of negativity in regards to this COVID lockdown situation that we're in, and the numbers going up and all this kind of stuff, it really kind of reminded me of this amazing verse in the Quran. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, أَمْ حَسِبْتُمْ أَن تَدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ وَلَمَّا يَأْتِكُمْ مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ خَلَوْا مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. He says that, do you think that you will enter Jannah, that you will enter paradise, وَلَمَّا يَأْتِكُمْ مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ خَلَوْا مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, while you have not been visited, while you don't go through any kind of difficulties, like those that were faced with difficulties from the past. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, مَسَّتْهُمُ الْبَأْسَاءُ وَالضَّرَّاءُ, that He says that they were afflicted with hardships and suffering. وَزُلْزِلُوا حَتَّى يَقُولَ الرَّسُولُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ مَتَى نَصْرُ اللَّهِ. And they were affected with these difficulties, with these sufferings, and they were so shaken up by these things that they began to say that, where is the help of Allah? أَلَا إِنَّ نَصْرَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ. أَلَا إِنَّ نَصْرَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet is telling the believers, the people, telling them, the Prophet is telling them that basically, إِنَّ نَصْرَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ, that Allah, the help of Allah is always near. And this is the kind of positivity, like we mentioned in previous lectures, that we need to have, inshallah, in regards to difficulties and sufferings that we go through. That Jannah is not something that is cheap, that you will go through difficulties in life, you will go through sacrifices, you will go through losses and hardships, but the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always close. And this is where, like we talked previously, in regards to the power of tawakkul, the power of trusting in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so in today's session, this is something I want you guys just as a question to think about. COVID has been a situation that really makes you be grateful for the life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us and the time that we have. And so the question that you need to ask yourself is that, what am I doing with this gift of life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to me? Yeah? And that's what today's session is all about. It's about procrastination and productivity. Yeah. So these are the kind of the setup of today's lesson and the structure of what we're going to talk about. First, we're going to talk about what is procrastination itself. And it's a question I'm going to ask you guys after. The second thing is then the opposite. What is productivity? Yeah. If I'm just being busy, does that mean I'm being productive with my time? Or does that just mean I'm just being busy? What does it mean to be productive? Then we'll talk about reasons of procrastination. So when you're sitting at your desk, you've got an assignment due, you've got exams due, you've got revision to do. What's the thought process that goes through our heads, our minds, that stops us from doing those tasks? And then we're going to talk about ways to battle procrastination, ways to kind of fight those kind of thoughts that stop us from doing the important things that we need to get done. And then finally, inshallah, we're going to go through maybe one or two, I think, important revision tips that really helped me definitely in my learning and still helps me in my learning. And I think, inshallah, it will benefit you guys. So we might go a little bit over time today, but there's a lot of content definitely to cover, a lot of important points. I do recommend, inshallah, have a pen and a notepad ready, any kind of important points, inshallah, to note down. Definitely take note of them, inshallah. So let's get started. Okay, so the first slide I've got here, yeah, I'm sure this is a scene that many of us have seen, on results day specifically, yeah, where you had two different scenarios, two different situations. You've got the one person, the one student who was productive with his time, who worked hard, who revised, who planned ahead and did well in his exam. And on the other side, you've got that person, he knows he kind of left it very, very late, kind of crammed everything on the last day, tried to pull loads of all-nighters, and he didn't work and he didn't do so well in his exams. And I'm sure all of us, or many of us, have been in one or both of these situations before. Yeah. And so what we want to first understand is we're going to try and understand the mindset of someone who goes through procrastination. And we're going to kind of rewind to that first instant of when you first get that assignment, when you first get the date of the exam. What are the thought processes that go through our minds? How we can deal with those voices that are telling us to kind of leave the work that we need to get done later and later and later, till we check the last few days of the exam and we've done nothing. Yeah. So we want to kind of deal with those kind of mindsets and that kind of mentality. But the first question we need to ask ourselves is, what is procrastination? So in the chat, inshallah, I've opened the chat, inshallah, as well. So if you guys in the chat can just in a word or two, what do you understand procrastination is? Wasting time. Anything else? Delaying something. Delaying a task. What if? Yeah, you start questioning yourself that, oh, what if this? What if this? A lot of negative thinking starts to come into your mind. What if I fail? What if this? Very good. Delaying important tasks, putting off time, being helpless, being lazy. Laziness is definitely a factor to it. Negative thinking, getting distracted easily. Distractions are also an important aspect of that. MashaAllah, these are really, really good points. Alhamdulillah. Postponing the task, delaying the task. So that really sums it up, MashaAllah, boys. Yeah, well done. So let's define it now. So the definition of procrastination is the gap between intending to do something and an action. So when you're in school, or like now you're doing it online and you're given a homework, you're given an assignment to do, you intend to do it. You want to get it done. You know you need to get it done. But procrastination is the distance between the intention that you make to do the task and the action itself. Like you boys mentioned, avoiding that task. And so you start filling that gap with useless things that are not going to help you to get that thing done. Like social media, like games, like YouTube, like Googling. We begin to waste our time with these things, hoping and praying that somehow this thing that we need to get done just vanishes. Yeah, but we know it's still going to be there, but we just hope somehow it's just going to vanish. Yeah. And so this is what we want to kind of discuss, is procrastination. How do we deal with these things? And one thing I read about in a book I definitely recommend you guys to read is this book called Productive Muslim. It's a really, really good book, which talks a lot about these different points. And he mentions in this book about this one fact, and I thought it's quite relevant to a lot of us, called productive procrastination, is where you begin to busy yourselves with smaller tasks to avoid the more important ones that you need to do. Yeah, you've ever had an assignment or a project or presentation that you need to do, and because of the stress, because of the worry, because of that negative thinking, rather than starting or doing the task, all of a sudden now you start cleaning your room, you start fiddling, you start doing anything else that's going to avoid you from doing that task. Yeah, I'm sure many of you can relate to that. And so what we want to first understand is, inshallah, today's session in regards to procrastination, we're going to split it into 2 lessons. So today we're going to talk about what I call temporary procrastination. And next lesson, we're going to talk about what I call the ultimate procrastination. So what do I mean by these 2 terms? Temporary procrastination is basically what I say is anything in regards to this dunya. Yeah. When anything in regards to, for example, your education, in regards to your work, in regards to your career, all of these things, that the effect of them are limited solely in this dunya. That's what we're going to talk about today. Yeah, specifically, obviously, the age group that we're talking about is in regards to teenagers. So we're going to talk a lot about exams and revision and these kind of aspects. But a lot of the points that we're mentioning, you can use in regards to any aspect of your life, in regards to work, in regards to your career. Even those of you who are memorizing the Quran, for example, you can really use a lot of these points. I know myself, when I was memorizing the Quran and I used to procrastinate and I used to feel lazy, a lot of these points actually helped me. So one of the boys asking, what book did I recommend? It's called The Productive Muslim. Inshallah, I'll keep the questions till the end, but inshallah, jazakallah khair for the admin for adding that. Yeah. So that's that. Now, the other point I wanted to mention, so that's in regards to today's session. In regards to next lesson, what we want to talk about is called the ultimate procrastination. Now, what do I mean by the ultimate procrastination? These are procrastinating in aspects of our deen. Yeah. And why do I call it the ultimate procrastination? Because the consequences, the effects of procrastinating in regards to our prayer, in regards to aspects of our deen, it affects us not only in this dunya, but it also affects us in the akhirah as well. And so, inshallah, next session, we're going to talk a lot more in regards to procrastination and being productive in regards to our deen. So what is productivity? Yeah, this is a definition that's given in regards to, and we're going to break it down. We talked about what procrastination is. It's important to understand what productivity is as well. So productivity is making smart choices with 3 things. Yeah, in regards to your energy, in regards to focus, and in regards to your time, to maximize your potential and achieve beneficial results. Yeah. And productivity is something that you need to understand, like I mentioned to you before, it's not just being busy for the sake of being busy, yeah? Which a lot of people have this misconception. I just want to tick it off the list of things that I need to do. That's not what being productive is. Yeah, and I've got this picture here of a rocking horse. It's a really good example to give. You can rock, on this rocking horse up and down, but how far or how much progress have you made? you haven't traveled, you haven't done anything. Yeah. So productivity, the measure of it is really in regards to how much development, how much movement have you moved in the right direction in regards to your goals, in regards to what you're talking about. The next thing, inshallah, so we talked about these three key aspects: focus, energy, and time. Yeah. And these three are kind of the three main elements that we need in regards to productivity. Yeah. If you lack in any one of these three aspects, then your level of productivity will go down. And you can use this as a kind of a measure. Whenever you're kind of feeling lazy, then it's in regards to energy. When you're kind of distracted, it's in regards to focus. When you've got so many things going on at once, then it's in regards to time. Yeah. But one thing I want you guys to really understand is where I put in brackets, why I put time, I said towards a fruitful goal. Why have I put that there? Because, for example, I know many of you guys during, the fact that you have your classes online, maybe most of you, and during the holidays, most of us spend that time playing games on PlayStation or wherever, right? Now, you have focus, yeah, when you're playing those games, you're focused on that game. If your parents tell you to do something, you don't hear nothing, you don't understand anything around you except for what's happening in that game. You have energy because when you're on the speaker talking to your friends, you're speaking loudly, you're having fun. The other thing is time. Yeah? You obviously have a lot of time for playing games, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, right? But does that mean you're being productive with your time? Does that mean you're being productive as a whole? No, it doesn't. And that's why it's so important that being productive means you're working towards a fruitful and beneficial goal. You're not just aimlessly doing something. Yeah, that's why it's so important to understand that definition, that these three elements really help a person to understand the idea of being productive. And so what I want to do is slowly, I see a lot of people raising their hands, inshallah. Any questions that you might have, leave it till the end of the session. We'll make sure to leave 10, 15 minutes for Q&A, inshallah. Yeah. So now we want to kind of understand the mentality of procrastination. Yeah. So I want to take you back to when you were in the classroom and your teachers told you, right, guys, you've got an essay or a project or an assignment or an exam due at the end of this month. When the teacher tells you that, there's kind of two conversations that's going in your mind. Yeah. One that's telling you, okay, you know what, I need to start revising or doing something or start planning what to do in regards to this. And the other one, which is the one that kind of takes over majority of the time, is, oh, don't worry about it. You've got plenty of time. It's 4 weeks away. I'll leave it till, the last week, before I really need to kind of be serious about it. And that's the kind of conversations that we have a lot of, in regards to procrastination. And so then what happens is we're going home, we're on the train, we're on the bus, and that battle starts to begin in our head. Yeah, you're on the bus, you're with your mates, and all of a sudden that thing that the teacher said in regards to the exam or the assignment pops again in your head. And to forget about it, then you start talking to your friends about football or whatever it might be. And then they start talking about the assignment. So then you start going on your phone. You start to do anything to kind of avoid from that task that you need to do. And then, you come home now, you go up to your room and you start emptying your school bag out and all your books come out and you see the notebook and it's again reminding you that, I've got something that I need to get done, this assignment, this revision that I need to do. And so for a split second, you think, okay, you know what, let me start doing something. But then your brain starts telling you, nah, you've had a long day at school, you've worked really hard, you need to rest, you need to go to sleep. So what do you do now is you go to sleep, yeah? And 2-3 hours go by and you're sleeping, the day away. And then you wake up again. And you wake up and it's the end of the evening time coming up now. And now you're saying to yourself, okay, you know what, I need to start something, yeah? At least just start the title or whatever it might be. And so you open your laptop, you get Microsoft Word and you say, okay, let me just at least write the title down or start doing something, yeah? And so as you're starting to write, now all of these voices start overwhelming you in regards to, what if I don't do so well? What if all the work I put in doesn't pay off at the end? All this kind of pressure starts to build, yeah? And so what happens is you don't want to deal with that. So then you close your laptop and then you get your phone out or your games out and you quickly go on WhatsApp with your boys chat and you say to them, anyone for a quick FIFA session or for a quick, COD session. And before you know it, the day is gone. Yeah. And again, you fall in this cycle of continuously telling yourself or convincing yourself to avoid this task that you need to get done. And I'm sure many of you can relate to this. Put your hands up, in the, if you can relate to this kind of thing that many of us go through. Yeah, like I said, many of you guys can relate to this. Oh, you got crazy. Okay, put your hands down. Okay, I see that. Okay, mashallah. Yeah, so we all go through this, right? We all go through that. And so what we want to do is break this cycle. And so one thing I want you guys to, inshallah, understand is that you are not a procrastinator. A procrastinator is not a person. Procrastination is a habit. And with any habit, you can change that habit. And so what we need to first understand is, how do we deal with changing this habit of procrastination? So with any habit, you have a trigger for that. Yeah, and many times in regards to many addictions, in regards to many habits that people have, it all starts off with stress. Yeah, why do many people smoke cigarettes? It's because they feel stressed out. So they have this behavioral habit of smoking, and the reward of that, they feel, it relieves them from that stress. And many of these habits that people have, like I mentioned before, they follow this kind of cycle. Yeah, and the same thing with procrastination. You have this trigger, which is stress, the behavioral habit, which is procrastination, meaning that you're avoiding the task that you need to get done. And the reward for that is, for a little while, you kind of put it at the back of your mind. You're not worried at that time. And so you fall into this cycle of continuously procrastinating and avoiding tasks that you need to get done. Now, the trigger, we all feel stress in regards to things like projects, in regards to exams. So dealing with the trigger is something that is very difficult to do. But what you can do is change this behavioral habit of avoiding the task. That you start channeling that energy that you have from that stress that's building up, not into something that makes you fearful or to make you avoid the task, but actually to make you productive, yeah? And not falling into the cycle of, I'll just do it later, okay? And this is quite a powerful thing I wanted to show you guys as well, is what happens with many of us when we're sitting down, we want to start a task or we want to do something. Two kind of opposing forces come together. And it can become overwhelming because you become overly motivated to do what? You become motivated because you want to succeed. You want to do well in whatever you want to do, whatever task it might be, whether it's an exam that you're revising for, an assignment that's due. But also you fear failing that task. Now, what if all of this effort that I do isn't going to pay off? What if it doesn't work? And all of this fear starts to kick in as well. And so you become stuck in the middle of these two opposing forces of wanting to succeed, but also fearing failure. And so what we want to do is kind of help you to remove or kind of lessen this failure, this idea of fearing failure. And so it's like a scale, yeah, that you're motivated to do a task, but you're also motivated to avoid the task. And what we want to kind of do is kind of shift this in regards to pushing you and motivating you that you feel like you want to do the task more than you want to avoid the task. And so what we want to do is go through some of these steps in regards to that. But before we do that, and I thought this is quite a really clever way of looking at procrastination, yeah? That it's actually a way that you as a person, if you really think about it, it's really true when you think about it, is procrastination is a form of self-protection. When you procrastinate, when you avoid doing a task, it gives you an excuse in case you fail, yeah? How many times have you heard somebody doesn't do well in their exam or something where they start to think to themselves that, oh, I knew I was going to fail. I only started revising yesterday. It makes you feel better about yourself. That, oh, I knew if I had revised 2 weeks ago, I would have smashed that exam, but I only revised yesterday. You start convincing yourself and you lower your standards just to make yourself feel better. Yeah. And so that's how, and for example, I put here, like example with your mates. So let's say you've got an assignment due with your classmates. You start asking your friends in regards to the assignment, say, have you done the assignment? You don't care, or you have no care, if he's done it or not in regards to, hoping or kind of having any kind of real worry or concern for his assignment, or if he's doing well or nothing like that. You just want to feel better. If he's not done doing it now, it makes you feel better that, oh, okay, he's not doing it, so it's all right if I'm not doing it, yeah? And it's these kind of attitudes that we have. And so what happens is when you fall into this way of thinking is that you lower your standards and you lower your performance level. Because now it's not a matter of you just wanting to do well. It's just a matter of you, pushing it so much to the deadline where it's now just not a matter of you kind of pushing yourself to do well. It's a matter of you just wanting to get it done, just putting anything out there. Yeah. And I'm sure many of you have that idea. Yeah. That I just need to get it done now. Yeah. And so you've lowered your standards where it's not a matter of succeeding or doing well anymore or getting a good grade. It's a matter of not failing or just getting a pass. Yeah. And it's such an important point to understand, especially in education and learning in general, because you always learn, whether you're at school, whether you're in the workplace, wherever it might be, is that when you think like this, that just quickly getting it done and you leave and you procrastinate till the end, what happens is that you don't stretch and test your abilities, because you're not kind of pushing yourself to a level that you can see and can push yourself in regards to the abilities that you can have, because you're just trying to get it done. You're just not wanting to fail. And so what happens is we need to understand a very, very important aspect that we have in Islam, which is called ihsan. Yeah. And so I want to ask you guys, anyone who is watching, any of you know what ihsan is? What does the word ihsan mean? Any of you heard this word before? So someone is saying good, perfection, the way of life. Okay, these are some of them are good definitions. So ihsan doesn't actually mean perfection. Why? Because none of us human beings are perfect. But like you mentioned, it's excellence. It means that you strive and you push yourself to do that the best that you can. That's the key thing. Yeah, mashallah, one of the brothers mentioned there as well, is that you're just trying to do the best that you can. And this is why I put a picture of this target. If any of you have been to archery before, if you aim just at the bullseye, the arrow that you're hitting, the arrow that you're letting go, it's gonna dip. Yeah, and so it's so important that you strive to always have very high targets. Strive to have high standards for yourself, because the same way that when you let the arrow flow, go, and you've hit it higher up, that arrow dips. In the same way in life, when you have high goals and high standards of yourself, even if that arrow dips, even if you dip a little bit, you've still achieved something that's great. And that's the kind of mentality that we as Muslims should always have. And this is something that we learn from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He mentions in the hadith that verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enjoined ihsan with regards to everything. Meaning that we should strive to be the best that we can, do the best that we're able to do in every task that we're given. And when you develop this idea, you're not wanting, or you don't care about external forces that to motivate you to do something. But this comes from within yourself, because you're wanting to do this to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the hadith, it carries on and it says that when you kill in a good way. When you slaughter in a good way. So every one of you should sharpen his knife and let the slaughtered animal die comfortably. Now you might think, what's that got to do with anything to do with what we're talking about today? The key thing I want you guys to understand is this point that the Prophet ﷺ mentions in regards to sharpening the knife. Yeah, it's a very, very important aspect to understand, is that the tool that you use, for example, for slaughtering, what did the Prophet ﷺ mention? Just start slaughtering the animal. He said, sharpen the sword. The same way, when you're doing a task, it's important to prepare well beforehand. You prepare your brain, you sharpen your mind, you get ready for the task that you're about to do. Yeah, and so your brain, your mind is the tool that you need to work. And so it's so important, your mentality, your thought process, how you organize your thoughts are so important when going into doing the task. I'm sure many of you may have heard like a story in regards to, I remember hearing this, when I was younger as well, like in leadership workshops that they do, in regards to a competition, in regards to like chopping up wood in a forest. That you have two guys, both of them have a competition who can chop wood the fastest, right? Now the first person just starts chopping up the wood, while the second person, he spends the first amount of time just to sharpen his axe. And that's the same thing that we need to do with our thoughts, with our minds, before we go into any task that we do. Now, the main part, inshallah, of today's session is kind of dealing with procrastination. And a lot of these points we're going to talk about in regards to revision, in regards to exams. But like I said, these can go in, you can put this in a context of anything, of any kind of work that you need to get done, whether it's in regards to work, in a career, in regards to hifz, like I mentioned before. A lot of these points I'm mentioning to you now, I've mentioned this before in regards to my Quran students or other students that I've had. So what are some of these? The first thing and the most important thing is having a sincere intention before starting. Now we know this from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى. Yeah, this is such a very, very important point to understand. And the hadith, what does it mean? Actions are according to intentions, and everyone will get what he has intended. So what does this mean? That when you're doing a task, if your main goal is just to pass an exam, is just to get a good grade, it's not deep enough to kind of keep you going when things become difficult. When you're, when it's hitting, a time that's a little bit later, when you're going through dips, those kind of motivations aren't going to keep you going in that time. And so what you need to do is find something that is a lot more sincere, a lot more deeper than that. I remember myself, even when I was in school, one of my main motivations to do well, my main motivation when I used to find it hard to revise was my parents. I knew how hard that they worked. I went to an Islamic secondary school, so my parents had to pay for that, and that was a big kind of push for me. And I used to go work a lot with my dad when I was younger as well, and he used to do a lot of like security and alarms, which it requires a lot of physical work. And sometimes I would be tired, and he would still be going because he knows he needs to keep working. And it's these kind of thoughts, of something that's deeper when you're going through revision, whatever it might be, to do well in regards to your job, in regards to that career that you want to do, that will continuously push you in moving forward. And even while I'm in Medina, one thing that I always do, even when I was there, is along my desk I have like all of these cards. When I was leaving to go to Medina, I used to have a lot of students, and a lot of them gave me cards, as I was leaving, and a lot of them like wrote nice comments and messages in regards to that. So whenever I'm in Medina and I'm going through revision or an exam, and I'm feeling that kind of stress of it, and I'm like, oh, can't be bothered to do it today, I'll open one of those cards and just go through one of the messages that one of those students wrote me, because that would motivate me for me to understand the reason that I'm there, the reason that I'm studying, the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. And you should always have that kind of goal always with you whenever you feel those dips, whenever you feel like you don't want to carry on, you want to procrastinate. Even those kind of boring topics, those boring subjects that you feel like this isn't going to benefit me, always see those things as stepping stones in regards to helping you, in regards to achieving that goal that you have. So that's the first thing. Yeah. The second thing is, and a very, very important point, is don't blame others. Yeah. Take accountability of your own education. Yeah. It's down to you. Yeah. And I think this is such an important point for youngsters to understand. Once you understand and you internalize that your education is first and foremost down to you, not your teachers, not your parents, not that your environment around you, is first and foremost down to you, then you can start working. Yeah, and I understand with the current COVID situation that we're in, schools being closed, working online, it might not be ideal for every single person, but it's so important that you can think of it in a negative way, but like we've said before, but you're not going to progress, you're not going to be productive in that way. How you need to think of it is that you need to take control of your own education, that you're not going to let lockdown or something like that stop you from your education, from learning. And this is such an important mentality to have, that we're living in a time, subhanAllah, that knowledge is at your fingertips. You don't have to go anywhere to really join a course or to learn anything. If you have a question or something that you don't understand, you just Google it, you go on YouTube. There's thousands and thousands of courses and videos and resources that you can use online just from the comfort of your own home. And I remember, subhanAllah, when I was in Medina, the scholars that they told us the story of Imam Shafi'i, that when he was in Medina, he was such a poor person that when he would go to the classes as a young person in the class of Imam Malik, he didn't even have enough money to kind of buy books or notebooks to write with. So they would go to kind of the offices or the administration offices, any scrap paper that they would have, he would kind of gather that up just to write any spare notes. And he would also go to kind of the outskirts where all the carcasses were of camels and stuff like that, and any kind of big pieces of bones, he would actually go to the haram and carry that and write notes with that. Now, you and me, we don't have to do that. Yeah, knowledge has become so easily accessible to us. And so it really is, our learning is really down to us. And what happens is, unfortunately, with this ease of access of all of this different resources that we have from just being at home, is that it builds this idea of laziness within us. And so when we see that the first obstacle in front of us, what happens is our minds, we feel like, oh, I don't fancy doing that. It's difficult for me. So we go back onto our place and we go back into our Xbox on Instagram or Snapchat to avoid that task, to go back into that cycle of procrastination. So it's very, very important to take accountability, that your learning comes from you and you foremost, before anyone else. And that definitely helped me, going to an Islamic school. I remember when I first went to Islamic school, people used to ask my parents, like, why did you spend so much money in going to an Islamic school? The education level is not that good compared to going to a state school and stuff like that. Now, that's a different argument altogether. But for me, what it definitely, taught me is independent learning. Yeah, that I never ever in my life ever said to myself that my education is solely based on my teacher. If he doesn't give me homework, if he doesn't give me work to do, that I'm not going to do anything. It's the same thing with you guys. I know GCSEs and exams are changing, but that doesn't mean that you don't, okay, now I'm on a big holiday, now I don't need to learn. For 6 months of not learning, that's wasting of your time, completely wasting of the brain that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. And like I said to you at the very beginning, with this life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you, it's a ni'mah, it's a blessing. And so you need to use it in the right ways. Point number 3 is there will never be a perfect time to start. Yeah, many times we have these conversations that we have that I'm not ready yet to start. And something that is quite funny when you think about it, I call it procrastination inception. It's like you procrastinate by watching videos on procrastination or something silly on YouTube or something like that, and 2, 3, 4 hours go, and you're just kind of convincing yourself that, no, this is going to help me to be productive, but you've spent 3, 4 hours not doing the task that you need to get done. Yeah, so there's never a perfect time to start. Sometimes you just have to start, and that's always the hardest aspect, is just starting. The next thing, kind of point I wanted to mention is called brain dump, and I think this is a very, very important point to mention, is any kind of concerns that you have, any worries or fears that overwhelms you from not starting the task that you need to do, write it down on a piece of paper. Yeah, write it down and just cross off all that extra rubbish, all the extra garbage that right now you can't deal with. Right now that it's not going to help you with the task that you need to get done. And I'm telling you, most of those points that you're going to write down are trivial things or points that right now you're not going to be able to deal with. And how I want you to understand this is the same way that, in regards to focus, if your brain is full of rubbish, full of all of these, thoughts and negative thinking, what happens is you can't focus. You can't focus. It's the same way with, like, for example, your phone. If you have loads of apps open and loads of tabs open and your storage is full, what's going to happen to that phone? It's going to start working a lot slower. It's not going to work at the full potential that it can do. Yeah. So what do you need to do? You need to start deleting some apps. You need to start closing some tabs. Then once you do that, then you'll be able to, the phone will work a lot smoother. It's the same thing with our brains. Get rid of all the extra garbage, so that way your brain is clear to work and focus with the task that you have at hand. Point number 5. Yeah. This is another important thing, is breaking it down. Yeah. When you have a big assignment or revision, or let's say you have to do 5 chapters of revision or a whole subject that you need to revise for, you don't go home and say to yourself, okay, I need to revise chemistry, I need to revise maths, I need to revise things. You break it down into those little modules or topics that you need to revise. Every day, do a little bit. Break it down into smaller chunks. The issue, what happens with procrastination, is we leave it till the last week. And so rather than, revising a chapter a day that, is feasible and we're able to do, well, what we do is we leave it till the last week. But we have to now, rather than it being 1 chapter, we have to revise 5, 10 chapters every single day, just to kind of make up for the time that we've lost. And so do things slowly. It's the same thing, like, for example, if you have like a puzzle, jigsaw puzzle. If you have a 1,000-piece puzzle, you don't just dump it all and just start. You have to organize it. You put it into smaller sections, and that will make it a lot more easier for yourself. So any task that you have, break it down into the key aspects that you need to do, and every day do a little bit of it. And again, consistency is always key. Point number 6. This is something I think a lot of us struggle with, and it's such something that's promoted to us a lot in our religion, which is winning the morning. Yeah, starting early. This is some of the points that I follow, and something that I think will help you guys as well. Is some people are raising their hands. Inshallah, any questions that you have, keep it till the end. Inshallah. Yeah. Praying your Fajr, obviously, is a very, very important point. The other thing is Quran and Adhkar. These are things that will help you in your day. How will they help you? It starts your day in a positive mindset, thinking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like we mentioned in our previous session, in regards to tawakkul and trusting in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that whatever tasks that you need to do for that day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there to help you with those tasks. The next thing you do is make your bed. Start off with the simplest of tasks. Yeah, just making your bed. You've already started in a positive way. You've done your first task of the day. Yeah, in a clean environment, you start. The next thing is kind of make a list of 3 important things that you need to get done that day. That no matter what is going through that, that day, whatever other things that you need to do, trivial things that you need to do, the 3 main things that by the end of the day that you need to get done. And the other thing is that you just start. One of the main things that you need to not do is not be on your phone. That first hour of the day, many researchers and many even lectures that I went to and spoke to in regards to this topic, they mentioned that your phone is the worst thing that you can start your day with. And unfortunately, that's the habit of many of us. It's the first thing, literally, we wake up, we're on Instagram, we're on Snapchat, we're on WhatsApp, we're on our emails and stuff like that. What happens when we do that is you're not doing what you need to do. You're doing what other people need you to do, if that makes sense. Yeah. So again, you're not doing what you need to do. You're doing what other people need you to do. Yeah. So you're not prioritizing yourself. You're prioritizing what other people need you to do. And so it's so important that first hour of the day where you really prioritize yourself. Like I said, sharpening that sword, sharpening your brain, getting it ready for the day that you have ahead of you. Point number 7 is burst learning. This is something that really helped me. I'm not someone who can revise 3, 4, 5 hours nonstop. Some people can. I was never someone like that. I get distracted very, very quickly. And in my head, if I was to tell myself that I need to revise for 5 hours, I would be like, no, I'd rather not revise. Yeah. So you need to work with negotiating with your brain. Yeah? You literally need to tell yourself, look, work in 30-minute intervals. And this is something that really helped me. Work in 30-minute intervals, have a 5-10 minute break in between that, and then start again. And it really helps, because what happens is at the beginning, you kind of build that adrenaline that motivates you to start. So your attention is good. And then even towards the end, when the time is kind of running out, that 30 minutes is finishing, your attention goes back again into the work and your attention level builds up again. And you don't have to stop in 30 minutes. Sometimes, when you're just in the zone and you're just working, you can carry on, but keep telling yourself it's only 30 minutes, it's only 30 minutes. Once you start, most people will carry on working, but it's always just that beginning part of starting that kind of stops people from being productive. The next point, conditional rewarding. Now, not just rewarding, it's conditional rewarding. That's the key aspect here. I think is a lot of people kind of get misconceptions in regards to this. Now, I remember as a youngster as well, going to secondary school and A-level, stuff like that. I used to play FIFA and Call of Duty and all those games as much as any other person. But I remember one thing I used to hate, was that feeling of coming home, you put all your work away, even though you've got homework and stuff due. And so what do? You pull out the PlayStation, you pull out the Xbox, you start playing FIFA, wherever it might be, and you keep playing and you're just avoiding, that homework that you need to get done. And then what you do is becomes the evening time and you tell yourself, I'll wake up early in the morning and I'll get it all done early in the morning. I'll wake up like 3, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'll get it all done. But what happens is that never happens. You wake up the next morning, you're running late for school, you're running to school and you're literally scribbling any kind of answers that you can get before the bell rings for school. Yeah. And I'm sure many of you guys can relate to that as well. And so what you need to understand is you conditionally reward yourself that after 30 minutes or whatever of working, you have a little break, have a 5-10 minute break, 15-minute break, pray your salah, eat something, have a small break in between that time. And then those kind of bigger things like, games, things that are going to, spend a lot of time doing, do that at the end of the day, once all of your tasks are done. Because what happens is many of us will revise for an hour or something, and then we say, I'm only going to play one FIFA game. I'm only going to play one COD game. And then all of a sudden, before 3 hours are gone. Or I'm just going to flick through my Instagram profile just for 5 minutes. And that all of a sudden you're watching YouTube videos, silly stuff, So it's so important that you conditionally reward yourself. You don't do these big things in between as breaks, but you just have small breaks by praying, doing a salah, eating something. And remove any kind of digital distractions around you. So obviously your phone, your phone is the main distraction that you have. Even if you have to work on your laptop, work in a full screen. And if you're watching a video or something with your teacher, don't keep your WhatsApp messenger on your laptop and stuff like that. Make sure you're focusing on the work that you do. And in those little breaks that you have, then you can have a kind of have a refresher session from the work that you're doing. And I remember even myself, I used to do this with myself, even in Medina, that if my friends wanted to go out, wherever it might be in the evening, if I didn't get my work done or my tasks that I need to get done for that day, I wouldn't go out with them because I knew that was priority. And that's so important to understand. You need to prioritize what comes first. Yeah, gaming or the exam or the revision or the work that you need to get done. And you all know the answer. You all know the answer to that. Point number 9 is don't compare yourself with others. Yeah. Don't lower your standards because of the people around you. Just because you might have a friend of yours that might be procrastinating by not he's not revising or something like that, he's not working hard, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't. His decisions shouldn't control the way that you live and the way that you learn. Yeah? And also another aspect in regards to this is the way that you revise is different in regards to someone else. Something that might take you 30 minutes might take someone else longer. And something that might take someone else very quickly to understand might take you longer. Just because they finish a topic very, very quickly doesn't mean that you need to finish that topic quickly. If it takes you longer, then take the extra time to understand the topic well. Because you have to understand, your mates are not going to do your exam for you. You have to do it. So you have to put in that effort for it. A kind of few points in regards to productivity. I think a lot of think that kind of 3 main things I want you guys to understand is building good habits. Now, habits is something that you don't even think about. You just do it, right? It's like, for example, the first time you go to the gym, or let's say the first time, inshallah, once this COVID thing finishes, you can go back to like Power League and playing football, like 5-a-side or something like that. That first time going back, you have to motivate yourself a lot. Yeah, for that first session, for that first time going back, it's cold outside, it's raining, do I really want to go? You have to kind of build and motivate yourself a lot. But after a few weeks of playing football weekly or joining that gym, it just becomes a normal habit. It just becomes part of your normal routine. And so you need to build those habits. So over this kind of lockdown situation, try and build these habits, inshallah. Another thing, a very, very important point, is make smart choices. Yeah, make smart choices. Like I mentioned before, you need to prioritize. Yes, you can play games, but you got exam, you got revision, you got homework due. Prioritize that first. Okay, you want to talk with your mates, you want to do that kind of other things, whatever it might be, but you've got work to do. Get the work done first. Yeah, you need to make smart choices in your life, and you'll see the ripple effects of that. The third thing, another kind of opposite to what we're talking about, is remembering to understand that you're not a machine. Yeah, don't burn yourself out. Don't work too hard, too fast, that when the time matters for you, like the revision, the exam time comes, that you're well already burnt out. So, you can't really focus, you can't really concentrate anymore. Yeah. And you see that many times. You see kids, I've seen guys, like students, come to the exam literally looking like zombies because they haven't slept in the last 3 days. Yeah, they've just been drinking Red Bull and Monster and just been in the library. And I don't think they've even left the library in the last 3 days. Yeah. So you see this a lot. And you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that when it comes to revising. You need to spread it out, like I mentioned to you before. If you leave it till the last week to revise for a topic, you're asking for trouble. Yeah, space it out over a long period of time. And inshallah, these are kind of the final points I'm going to mention in regards to revision tips. Yeah, some of the points that really helped me during my throughout my university degree, even in the UK when I did chemistry. It helps me now, even when I'm studying in Medina, and even now online, and also during my GCSE stuff. And some of the points that I wish I'd learned earlier. Revision tips and kind of things that helped me later on, starting when I was in university, that I kind of pick up in my revision, that I wish if I knew before, it would have definitely helped me a lot in regards to my learning. So I want you first to take note of this kind of word, the word fast. Yeah? Now each letter stands for something. And these are kind of 4 main concepts that I want you to approach your learning with. The first thing is, for the letter F, is forget. Forget what you already know about that topic, about that subject. Keep your mind open and empty. Otherwise, what happens is what you already know about that subject, it scares you before you start even learning about it. It can put you off from learning more about that topic. Come to that topic with a clear mind, clean slate. The second thing, and inshallah, I'm going to give some practical tips in regards to this, is being active in your learning. Yeah, if you're passively going to read a book, or one of your exercise books, or you're just going to listen to a lecture, and you think that all that information you're just going to absorb, like your Imam Bukhari or something like that, most people are not got photographic memory or something like that. It's not going to work. Yeah, learning is not a spectator sport. It's something that you need to be active in. And I'll give you some tips in regards to that, inshallah. The third thing is the letter S, and that's the state that you're in. Yeah, if you're not in a correct mental state in regards to you're thinking negatively, and all of the points that we've mentioned previously in regards to procrastination, then you're not going to be in a fit, mentality to learn. And so you need to come to that learning with a positive mindset. And this is an important kind of phrase I was taught before as well, is be a thermostat and not a thermometer. And what does that mean? What's the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat? A thermometer is something that's affected by its surroundings, right? So the temperature goes up and down. The mercury thing goes up and down, depending on how hot or how cold the environment is around it. But what does a thermostat do? A thermostat sets or regulates that temperature. So it sets the temperature, and then the surrounding goes up and down based on that temperature, meaning that you have that self-discipline within yourself to kind of be in the correct mindset for learning. And certain things in regards to this example, the kind of foods that you eat. So I've seen so many people times, even with my mates, is you eat like you go to the chicken and chip shop, you got doner, and or you're at home and you eat like a big plate of biryani and rice, and then you complain, oh, I'm very tired now, I'm so tired now, I can't revise properly. Well, there's a reason for that. You need to also look at the foods that you're eating. There's a reason why the Prophet ﷺ also said that keep a third of your stomach empty, a third for water, a third for food. When you overstuff yourself with food, you can't concentrate properly when it comes to your work. And so that's a very, very important point to understand as well. And the final point, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't do, is teaching. Yeah? When you teach something, this is something I want you guys to remember, is when you teach something, you learn it twice. When you teach something, you learn it twice. It's probably the best way to retain knowledge, is by teaching it. And certain ways that you can do this is by having a review day with one of your, once a week, for example, with one of your classmates. And this is something that I used to do even in Medina. This is something that even all the students used to tell us to do as well, is that you have someone that you just kind of review at the end of the week. Any questions that you have in regards to the topics, you just kind of go through whatever topics you've had during that week over an hour session or something like that, and you just help each other. Yeah, you might teach one topic, he might teach another topic, and just by teaching, what happens is it kind of motivates you to really learn the material well, because now you've got to teach it to someone else, and now you have to simplify it to make someone else understand it. And that is probably one of the best ways for a person to really understand the material or the things that they need to kind of learn. And the kind of final points, kind of steps or things that really helped me during my learning. This is something, inshallah, I'm going to go for, and I'm going to kind of break it down to you step by step. So it's something that you don't understand, then you can use the comments, inshallah. And this is something I picked up probably when I was in university. And even now, subhanAllah, on YouTube, you see a lot of videos that actually use these techniques as well. And like I mentioned to you before, that you need to be active with your learning. If you're just going to have your exercise book in front of you, and you're just going to read it from the top of the page, you're just going to read a chapter, and you think that you're going to understand everything, that's not how it works. Yeah. And so these are some of the steps, or some of the things that I used to do that really helped me. And it's things that I still do today that help me with memorizing and learning concepts and ideas. Yeah. So the first thing, let's say you got to memorize, not memorize, for example, you're revising a topic. So you're going to go through like a couple of pages of a book or exercise book. The first thing that you do is highlight, as you're going through the book, highlight all the main concepts, the main points in regards to that topic, wherever it might be. And as you're going through those main points, what you do is have a spreadsheet. So like I've got here, for example, where you make a table and you write questions based on those points. Yeah. So for example, if I'm doing about the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, and I'm doing about his birth, one of the questions, and I come across, for example, when the Prophet ﷺ was born, the year that he was born in, or the year of the elephant, or whatever it might be in regards to that, then I will ask a question, what year was the Prophet ﷺ was born in? What events took place when the Prophet ﷺ was born? Yeah. So those are kind of questions you start asking, and you kind of going in reverse. So because you know the answer, you kind of go in reverse and asking the question. And what happens is you kind of become like an investigator. So what you're doing, you're looking at this text, you're not just reading it, but you're kind of being active with the text that you're reading. So you're looking at key points and you're trying to make questions based on that. And then once you have a list of questions that you've got, that kind of adds to like your question bank. And this will come in very handy when you kind of wanting to test yourself. So once you've done that, yeah, so you made your questions. Let's say I'm doing about the birth of the Prophet ﷺ today. Tomorrow I do about the early childhood about the Prophet ﷺ, and I start building like a question bank in regards to the topic that I'm studying, right? Now what you do is a couple of days later, you come back to that topic, yeah? And then you do it again weekly. Each time you test yourself based on the questions that you've made. And so what you do is very simply, like I said, you know, when you're learning, it's so important. You know, you might think that certain subjects might not be helpful to you. Like you might want to do English literature or art or something like that. So why can IT be useful to me? If you know how to use Excel and other things in regards to organization, in regards to productivity, these things help so much. So for example, this is what I do on Excel, is I just make a quick spreadsheet with the questions and the answers, yeah? And then what I do is, the next time I revise, the next time I'm going to go through the topic, rather than reading the whole chapter again, which is a waste of time, what I do is I start going through the questions that I made in regards to the main points. And then what I do is I highlight. So let's say the first question. If I know the answer quickly, what do? I kind of put it in green. So no problem, meaning I can answer it very quickly, not an issue. If it's yellow, that means I had a rough idea. It was kind of 50-50. It took me a bit of time before I could answer the question. When it was in red, that means like I've got no idea. I don't know how to answer the question. Yeah, and so you start building an idea in your mind of the points from the topic that you understand and the points from the topic that you don't understand. And so the next time you revise, you know what points to go over, and so you start to build this up. So that's the first kind of thing that you should have. Build like a question bank of questions for each topic, and you can do that by making up questions like from reading the material itself, even from past exam papers that you might have done, or even from the exercise books, the questions that you may have. Have a mixture of different things. Don't just rely on that, but actually actively try and make up your own questions as well. The next thing is you start to review. Yeah, start reviewing yourself. And I'll go through the second table, inshallah. So the first thing, like we mentioned, is you make your question bank. So let's say, like I mentioned before, is I'm going through the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah. So the first day on the 6th of January, I'm going to revise about everything to do with the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, before he was born, and all this kind of topics, right? So I revise that on the 6th of January. Then on the 7th, I do about his early childhood, the Meccan period, and the Medini period. Each time I'm making a question bank of questions for each topic. Yeah, that's the first kind of cycle of doing it. Then you do your first review. So what's your first review? Like I mentioned before, now you're testing yourself based on the questions that you've made. So the first week is done. I've revised all of these topics. Now we're going through the first review. So now on the 10th of January, it's been about 4 days since I've revised the birth of the Prophet ﷺ. Now I'm gonna kind of test myself on how much do I remember from what I revised those 4 days ago. Yeah, and so I start going through all of those topics. All of those questions. And so what you do is you look back, and then, like I mentioned to you before, you start highlighting again. You do that traffic light system: red if you don't know it, yellow if it's okay, and green if you know it well. And then based on that color, whichever color is the most, what you do is you fill in that that section here. So on the 10th of January, when I revised, it was green. I knew that topic well. Most of the questions I could answer, quite well. So I know it's a topic that I know quite well. But now let's say the next day, I go through the early childhood of the Prophet ﷺ and the Meccan period, and I'm going through that question bank again, like I mentioned before. But this time, I just don't know most of the answers. So I know these are topics that I need to go over. These are topics that I need to work a little bit more harder in regards to revising. And for the Medina period, let's say it's kind of 50-50. So that's your first cycle of reviewing. Yeah. Now, once you've done that full cycle of review, when you're doing the second cycle, what happens is now you choose. You look at your previous section and you see, okay, you know what? I'm not going to revise the birth of the Prophet ﷺ first, because I knew that it was green. I did well in that. I know most of the answers. So now you prioritize. So in your head, you should have the mentality that what if the exam was tomorrow? What are the topics that I need to go over the most? And so I know, like, for example, in this table, the early childhood and the Meccan period, I'll choose which one of those I need to go over. So let's say I start off that second review, going through the early childhood of the Prophet ﷺ. Then I do the Meccan period. And then I know with the other two, I don't need to worry too much because I've reviewed it and I've done well in the previous revision. And so you keep following this kind of process, doing a third review and a fourth review till it comes to the exam time. Because the whole point, and I've noticed this as well, and it's a misconception that I had, is that I just thought that if you kind of kept reading, kept memorizing, it makes you feel good about yourself because you're working, you're being busy. But like I mentioned to you before, just being busy doesn't mean that you're being productive. Doesn't mean that you're actually learning anything. Yeah, you can read a whole book, but if I ask you to talk about that book, to summarize that book, if you're not able to really kind of talk about the main concepts, then have you really been productive in reading that book or learning concepts from that book? No, you haven't. So I feel, inshallah, this is quite a good method that I use, and it really helped me during my learning. And definitely, inshallah, if you have any questions in regards to that, we'll talk about that a little bit later. And so, inshallah, just to finish off, this is something I listened to a talk by a lecturer called Jim Quick, and he's a very good lecturer in regards to learning quickly and memorizing topics and stuff like that. And he mentions this, and it was a really profound statement. He says that there's a version of you that you haven't met yet. Okay, so basically, keep developing yourself, keep working on yourself till you can introduce yourself to this amazing version of yourself that you haven't seen yet. Meaning that in 2021, make this the year that you develop yourself, you work on yourself so that you become an even greater and more amazing version of who you are today. Meaning that you can reach greater abilities, greater strengths if you push yourself. Yeah, and inshallah, with that, we will finish the session. Just a few announcements in regards to the classes. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the session, in regards to, we have a Telegram group. So anyone who is on the, what did we say? Anyone who is on the WhatsApp groups, I've just put it in the Telegram group. If you're able to join the link, then join. If you have any issues, then inshallah you can get in touch with the admin team, and then inshallah we can sort something out. We will try and deactivate the account for the WhatsApp group that we have available at the moment, just because it'll make it easier for Telegram, and also any kind of links and stuff to keep updated, we'll keep it from there. Also, I mentioned this at the beginning of the session, but I'll mention it again as well. Like we know that these sessions are a joint effort from Ikhlas Learning and Muslim Youth Initiative. So these are just some of the courses that we're running. I know this is a boys session, but any sisters, mothers, aunties that you have that want to learn tafsir, that want to improve the Quran and the tajweed, or even learn more in regards to fiqh or stories of the prophets, we have a lot of courses available starting from next week, inshallah. So if anyone that you know who might be interested, inshallah, you can give them our email address, ikhlaslearning@gmail.com. And also any updates in regards to any future courses that we have, follow us on our social media, and inshallah, you can keep updated with that. And I also mentioned before, we also have a YouTube channel. Inshallah, I would really love your feedback in regards to the stuff that we're putting out there. In regards to the tajweed, we made like a whole syllabus starting from makharij, so reciting from alif bata, all the way up to kind of hard concepts like med and different types of med and stuff like that. We also do like hifz challenges. So if for example, being in lockdown, it's a perfect time for you to make a goal of memorizing a surah, for example, Surah Mulk or Ayatul Kursi or Juz Amma, or whatever it might be, Surah Kahf. We have videos to kind of help people to memorizing this stuff as well, inshallah.